for reaching his heart before he died. Use his life to remind us all to share the gospel with everyone you've placed in our lives. I couldn't help thinking, Jews don't say this. A Jew would never say this. If this Bible study were a Jewish one, which would more aptly be called a Torah study, the language would be completely different. I find those prayers more straightforward, unlike Christian prayer, which is often riddled with expressions like, use my life, touch his heart, guide me through your word, and other sentiments that, quite honestly, I understand without actually understanding. I know that touch his heart isn't literally asking to feel the organ in the crevice of one's chest. That would just be creepy. But it's meant to inspire, encourage, and comfort. I thought to myself, why not just say that then? Why all the vague imagery? Expressions like quiet time and love on mystify me as well. The former just makes me think of nap time, not individual worship time, and the latter just has this creepy sexualized vibe to it, especially when used for an ad for childcare in the Student Center bulletin board. We need devoted Christ followers to love on our kiddos from 9 to noon. None of it felt right on my Semitic tongue. I was learning lines, but was not good enough of a performer to convince an audience that I knew my part. I thought to myself, this may be my religion, but these are not my people. How can that be? What is religion without a community? It's not because we don't all believe the same things, more or less, but like the Tower of Babel, our speech has gotten confused. I cannot effectively communicate with this group if their language is not my mother tongue. Then again, the women of this Bible study and most Christians in general would find it just as strange to hear the Yiddishisms that I grew up hearing from my mother and grandmothers. Those are integral parts of my vocabulary and might always be. If I cannot call myself a Jew by faith, I can join the ranks of most of America's Jews and consider myself a Jew by culture, which may be my only option. I never knew whether to take offense when people occasionally told me I looked Jewish. I imagine it's somewhat similar to being told you look gay. It's offensive, a compliment, or a casual conversation, depending on context. But how can it be offensive if it's true? I am Jewish, ethnically speaking. I check off Ashkenazi anytime it's required for an accurate assessment of my medical history, and with that background comes an expectation, read stereotype, of physical appearance. But don't all stereotypes begin with a grain of truth? Growing up, it was not my so-called big nose or thick eyebrows that gave me grief over my Jewishness, but my thick, unmanageable curly hair, which only decided to be curly on some days. The only consistent thing about it was its poofiness, frizz, and tangles. When a stylist once commented, "You have enough hair for 3 people," as I settled into her chair, I cried. I was 9 years old and extremely sensitive. It's not an exaggeration to say that hair has a huge impact on one's identity and self-esteem, especially when living in a culture that worships shiny, straight hair as the ideal standard of beauty. My battle for curly hair acceptance began 3 years before that appointment at Great Clips, which made my mother realize it was time to join her in an official grown-up salon, when a ballet teacher told me my bun wasn't smooth enough. Well, newsflash, curly hair is anything but smooth. Today, it's somewhat of an embarrassment to admit that part of my acceptance of being Jewish happened when I learned to properly care for my hair. To me, and anyone belonging to an ethnic or cultural group marked by a very specific kind of look, having the right hair can make or break an attempt to assimilate. A jab about frizz can be akin to a jab about who you are as a person and where you belong. To that end, the limitations and boundaries about the appropriateness in cultural jokes are still blurry. I can make jokes about the Jew fro I had when I was 6, but if someone makes a similar comment, does that make it anti-Semitic? And today, is it fair to say that my beliefs may be Christian, but my hair never will be? I've had friends lightheartedly tell me that if I straighten my hair and dye it a lighter brown, I could pass for a typical Gentile, but if I leave it curly and dye it dark, I look more Jewish. For some of us, how we look cannot be severed from who we are. Recognizing that has saved me a great deal of time getting ready in the morning. I recently started attending Shabbat services at the Hillel Jewish Student Center here at CSU. I figured that if things didn't work out, it's not like I had friends there to begin with, so there was nothing to lose. The service opened with one of those dreaded icebreaker games. State your name, your major, and what being Jewish means to you. My mind flooded with 2 thoughts. 1, I'm a decade older than all these freshmen. And 2, would I be brave enough to come out as a Christian in front of all these people? Should I just get it over with? When my turn finally came, I took a deep breath and gave this letting God speak through me idea a go. Hi, I'm Beth, a first-year graduate student in creative writing, and I was raised Jewish, but I've been a Christian for about a decade, and I started reconsidering what being Jewish means after my father died. I guess you could say I'm Jew-ish. The room tittered with giggles at my lame pun. No stones were thrown. No one cried out, "Who let the apostate in?" The service leader smiled and replied, "Thank you," and the service began. After the service, we were dismissed for dinner, and that's when my nerves returned full throttle. The gentleman who introduced himself to me as the director when I came in caught up to me and tapped my shoulder. When I turned around, he said, "That was very brave of you, what you said." "Thank you," I told him. I was really nervous. "Don't be. I'm glad you're here." Why was I so surprised by this kindness? I wasn't there to proselytize, so maybe that had something to do with it. He handed me a paper plate, and I took my place in line for serving, and my thoughts continued in a self-deprecating flow. "Are you sure you want to share your food with a traitor?" My table mates were two women who looked about my age. The one across from me broke the ice by asking how I became a Christian. I avoided my usual tongue-in-cheek response. "Well, I wrote an entire book about that. You can find it on Amazon," and gave my elevator testimony instead. A 30-second explanation of my fascination of the incarnation and the promise of redemption. And as it turned out, I wasn't the only one with an interfaith background. We all exchanged contact information and parted with hugs. Looking at us, you'd assume we'd been friends for years instead of a few hours. I internally squealed like a child on the way back to my car. They liked me. They really liked me. But why was I so surprised? I'm on a journey, just like everybody else. I certainly don't have the answers yet, but I'm slightly more confident about being both on this day than I was before. I may be still a skeptic, but at least I'm a more hopeful one. Thank you.